Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9 reads, "And he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly I will rather boast in my infirmity, that the power of Christ may rest on." The word encouragement means to inspire with courage, hope. Discourage means to retard or hinder, to oppose. And so the discouragement tool is used by the devil a lot. And there's an old fable that says that the devil once held a sale and he offered it to everyone who would buy. And so on each of the table was hatred, malice, envy, pride, despair, sickness, all the weapons that one could use. All the weapons that one could use. And so this devil, he laid out these things on the table. And so all these things looked harmless to people. And so there were some that were more worn out than the others. So remember, the word encouragement means to inspire with courage or hope. The word discouragement means to retard, to hinder, to oppose. And so here we have this tool that the devil has laid out on the table. Harmless looking, wood-shaped discouragement. It was old, it was worn out, and it was priced far above everything else. And when asked the reason why, the devil replied, "Because I can use this one so much easier than the others. No one knows that it belongs to me. I can open doors with it. I can unlock doors. I can close doors. I can get into any door. I can do whatever it is that suits me with this old, worn-out tool." Because of man's weakness, he needs encouragement and help from other resources. But God is the resource of all encouragement. All right? God encouraged Hagar in her hour of need. Genesis chapter 21. Genesis 21. Verse 9 through 22. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing or laughing. Therefore she said to Abraham, "Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, namely with Isaac." In verse 11 of Genesis chapter 21. And the matter was very displeasing to Abraham's sight because of his son. But God said to Abraham, "Do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Isaac your seed shall be called. Yet I will also make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, because he is your seed." So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, or water filled in a skin, a skin container, and putting it on her shoulder, he gave it and the boy to Hagar and sent her away. Then she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, and the water in the skin was used up, and she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. Then she went and sat down across from him, in verse 16, at a distance of about a bow shot, For she said to herself, let me not see the death of the boy. So she sat opposite him and lifted her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad, verse 17. Then the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, what ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, in verse 18, lift up the lad and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. So God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Ishmael was 14, okay? We see this in Genesis chapter 16, verse 1 through 16. Egyptian bondwoman Sarah bore Ishmael to Abraham, okay? And it reads as this in Genesis 16, verse 1 through 16. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, see, now the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her. And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, an Egyptian, and gave her to her husband, Abram, and to be his wife. And Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. And Sarai said to Abram, my wrong be upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between you and me. So Abram said to Sarai, indeed, your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please. When Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from her presence. Now the angel of the Lord in verse 7 found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from, and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. Angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress in verse 9, and submit yourself to her, or submit yourself under her hand. Then the angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude. The angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall name his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Then she called the name of the Lord and spoke to her, you are the God who sees. For she said, have I also here seen him who sees me? Therefore, the well was called Bir-lahai-roi, because it is between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 66 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. Ishmael was 14. Isaac was born the next year. Ishmael mocked Isaac at the festival of Isaac's weaning there. And at Sarah's instance, with God's approval, Hagar and Ishmael were expelled from Abraham's family. Abraham grieved for Ishmael, but God comforted them by telling him that a great nation would come out of Ishmael. So they wandered in the wilderness until their water was gone, as we read, and Hagar laid her son under that shade tree, and it was hot. They were thirsty, but as we see, God supplied. God strengthened, and God shielded. All right? So Joshua was born in Egypt. He went through some great events there, okay? The Passover, the Exodus, with Moses and all the people there, and they escaped bondage, they did that by the hand of God. And at Moses' death, we know Joshua was chosen to be the successor to lead the Israelites and to conquer the land. And he was supervising all that area and that land and that whole situation. And with this great burden, Joshua would need to have some confidence, and he'd need to fall back on God and to rely on God to see through. So the great God of comfort was there. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Joshua chapter 1, 5-8. I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide an inheritance, the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to the law which Moses the servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. The book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good successes. So even those who are enslaved in sin are given hope by God and the promises that they receive, the pardon that they received. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 7 reads, in him we have redemption through Jesus' blood, forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace. The God of courage keeps giving. The God of courage gives us courage, and we should encourage one another. All right? And Christ sets the example. A man sick, a man of palsy, and he said, be of good cheer. He says here, then behold, they brought to him a paralytic laying on a bed. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, son, be of good cheer. Your sins are forgiven you. Disciples, how about that on that stormy sea? But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, be of good cheer, it is I. Do not be afraid. And those having tribulation, he says in John 16:33, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. The God of encouragement, we see throughout the ages, he hasn't changed. And also the God that encourages the weak. And even in Exodus chapter 14, Moses, he was encouraged. He encouraged Moses, and Moses encouraged Israel. And the Egyptian army were bearing down on them. He gave them courage, and he needed encouragement. Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 reads, and Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still. See the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. There you go. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. You shall hold your peace. Well, sometimes the weak needs to encourage the strong. Moses told Israel that they had to encourage Joshua in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 28. But command Joshua, encourage him and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people. He shall cause them to inherit the land which you will see. So even the old needs to encourage the young. Now the days of David drew near that he should die, and he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be strong, therefore, and prove yourself a man. Prove yourself a man. And keep the charge of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways. Keep his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, as it's written in the Bible. That's what we're supposed to keep. That's the way we're supposed to keep it. he says here, that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn. That the Lord may fulfill his word which he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons take heed to their way, to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their soul, he said, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. The young can encourage the old by being obedient. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1 reads as this: a wise man makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. True words. Then, too, we must encourage ourselves, all right? It's only possible, though, from help from above. Paul and Silas were beaten for the cause of Christ. They were put in prison, and they encouraged themselves when you read Acts chapter 16. Acts chapter 16, verse 25, it reads as this: but at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. So they sang praises, and we encourage each other by even attending worship services. Talking to someone about Jesus might surprise you about the joy you get out of that. All right, and bringing children to the Lord. Our brother in Christ to the Philippians said that he can do all things, but he can only do those things through Christ. So we all need to be encouraged from time to time. We need to take our part in the encouragement, and we need to encourage others becoming a Christian and enjoying and joining in the joys of the Lord, becoming his faithful child. And we can do that by telling others how to be saved, by being immersed into Jesus Christ for the remission of their sins and having their sins washed away, and giving them some Bible verses to help study along that way so they can make the right decisions about Jesus and know what they're getting into. You know, explain to them what it's like being a Christian. Explain to them, you know, the things that they're going to have, the challenges they're going to go through. You know, give them something to what to expect from the world and things. And it really does make it a lot easier, you know. Tell them you're going to pray for them as we are asked to pray for one another. And the prayers of a righteous man avails much, James 5:16. So listen to yours, and I hope you're encouraged by the fact that God has saw his people through from Genesis, and Jesus sees his people through all the way through the New Testament. So it hasn't changed. The God of encouragement hasn't changed. Through all the atrocities, all the worst things that could happen to someone, even death, God has seen them through, and God takes care of them. Even when the armies of Egypt are bearing down on them, he'll take care of you too.